Today, we're going to see how beautiful Barbaresco is. I'm Jason.
And I'm Trent, and we're on unfiltered, unapologetically unprofessional wine journey. We have a saying here, Jace.
Our saying here is drink more, try more, learn more. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now, before we jump into the beauty of the Barbaresco, I did want to share my thoughts of the week.
What is it?
And I'm thinking about how embarrassed I was when we interviewed Merrick Watts.
Yeah.
And I was describing the wine, and there was crickets, absolute crickets, when I was putting my descriptors in place. We're having a fantastic 1996 Mururu Rockford Basco Press, and it was a fantastic rare wine.
Yeah.
And I gave the descriptor, I said, it tastes a bit like cooked tomatoes.
Yeah.
Not in a bad way.
Yeah.
But no one responded to that.
I was looking at you awkwardly as well.
You were looking at me awkward. And I just, like, for such a celebrity to be on our podcast, someone I completely admire, and then to say something like that and there's no response, I was like, I just want to die silently inside.
I heard you say it like 3 times as well, and each time there wasn't any response.
There was no ringing at all.
I was laughing internally.
You were laughing, I was dying, and I remember going home that night and just going, you idiots, what are you talking about? And so I said to myself, look, that's all right. I'm not a wine expert in any way. Yeah. I'm an amateur. I'm just telling people what I can taste. But I did say, look, I'm going to challenge myself and I want to improve my palate. So I kind of have a look. How the hell do you do that?
How do you do that, Jace?
How do you improve the palate? And so I found out, I looked at quite a few different places, and they're actually very similar things and messages, and I thought I'd bring it together. But the thing to note, the palate is not just your tongue and what you taste. It's a combination. It's your nose, it's your tongue, it's your taste buds, it's the interior of your mouth. That's what gives you the flavor and the perception that you have. But also, your history and experience has a strong impact on it. And for me, I actually don't eat fruit. So we're drinking wine and I'm trying to describe, it tastes like cherries, it tastes like blackberries.
Or tomatoes.
Or tomatoes. I have a lot of tomatoes, which is why. But I actually don't know what a blackberry tastes like. I've never had one in my life. Right? And I feel a bit embarrassed to say that. But it's my perception. So that's something to note. Like, I've never had fruit. If you think about someone of Indian background, they have a lot of spicy food. Turmeric. They'd be able to pick up the spices, the turmeric and so forth. They'd be more attuned to that.
Right?
Exactly. So history and your experience has a part to play. I also think, look, I'm not a som in any way, and they have years and years of practice, and so. To me, that's what's great about this podcast and going on this journey with you, because that's what gives me the exposure. Yeah. That's what gives me the practice. So I had a look. How do you develop your palate?
I know. You taste more, try more, learn more.
That's a big part of it. Those are the basic 3 steps, but I thought I'd go into more detail. So let me hit you with the steps that are here. So the first thing, you got to cleanse your palate. Make sure it's not impacted by any other flavors. So water, unsalted crackers, give that a go. You also have to cleanse your nose. I read somewhere you should smell your underarm in advance to kind of cleanse your nose. I don't know if that was a joke.
I heard it was like the elbow, wasn't your underarm.
Oh, maybe I misunderstood.
But you could smell your underarm.
Why the elbow butt?
There's a very neutral smell, they say.
I can't smell anything out of there. Yeah. Okay, maybe that's why.
You could smell other things as well if you want to try.
Thanks for offering. I'll decline that one. After you cleanse your palate, the next message is slow down. Do not feel the pressure to kind of work it out.
Yeah.
Take your time with the wine. Have a feel. Try and work out what the different nuances are.
Agree.
Third, look and smell, which is what we do on the podcast. But look and smell gives you a perception of taste.
Yeah.
The look of the wine can look oily, or it could look light or bright. The smell gives you those primary, secondary and tertiary flavors. So primary, like the fruit, the floral. The secondary, thanks for showing the examples, yeasty, biscuit. The tertiary, more savory, so mushroom, soy, etc. And the other one, the one after that is close your eyes and visualize. And I remember we did this on our pilot episode, And I was closing my eyes for about 1.5 to 2 minutes. And that's too long, I think, which is why I never do it. But it just looked like I went to sleep. Yeah. But the whole point is to avoid any distractions. Yeah. When you're tasting it, close your eyes, eliminate any exterior activities that are going on, and then kind of visualize, what are you tasting? Are you tasting that cherry? Are you tasting that forest floor? Yeah. Imagine it.
Do you have a sense of sometimes when you can close your eyes and you pretend you're tasting something and you actually can taste it?
Yes. And a perfect example, we had a wine where I was imagining violets.
Yeah.
And violet's a color. It's not even a flavor, but I imagine
there's a violet crumble.
There's a violet crumble, but the flower and the color itself imparts, I imagined a specific taste. Yeah, absolutely. So that visualization, I think, is a key part.
Yeah.
Picking out the flavors. This is where I think I get stuck. I identify a flavor, I can't move past it and see what's behind there. So in that episode, I was like, tomatoes. Everyone's like, no, but I couldn't work out what else was there. Think about the texture and the body. So as you're swirling it around in your mouth, you suck in a bit of oxygen. There's a term for that. Aspiration. I didn't know if that's the right term. Aspiration. It doesn't sound like the right term. Aspiration.
No, I think
aspiration.
They always talk about engines naturally aspirated, which is my kind of fresh air. Maybe it is aspirational. But
so while you're swirling it around in your mouth, sucking in some oxygen. Yeah, effectively the oxygen kind of opens up those flavors. 7 is compare and contrast, which is what we do on this podcast.
Yeah.
We're trying different varieties, different vintages, different areas, and that helps build out your kind of wine memory. Second last, build out the wine memory. So write it down. Don't just rely. What we do here, we put it on video, we put it on Instagram, we put it on TikTok, we put it everywhere so that we can remember. Yeah. And then lastly, research your vocabulary. So there are a lot of terms, roundness, integration, balance. What does that all mean?
Yeah.
That vocabulary is kind of being built up. But if you learn what those are, maybe we can better relate and you don't need to say cooked tomatoes.
It's something like when you're kind of stuck on something, you kind of know it, but you don't know how to express it.
Yes.
So once you know that word, then it's like, yes, it's that.
That's exactly it. Yeah. And so giving a word that you can link with that flavor that you're tasting is what's key.
But then like my flavor and your flavor could be quite different. Like I could be thinking about mapo tofu and you could be thinking chicken adobo.
Yes.
It could be a similar thing in terms of the same ingredients, but then it's quite different.
Well, I think that's what I appreciate about that Merrick moment, because he did say afterwards, mate, there's professional judges out there that they describe a taste and no one links to it. It's not you. It's just how everyone reacts and what they feel and what they experience at the time. So look, taking that all into consideration, there's quite a few steps there to develop your palate. I'm going to start doing more of that more often. And maybe I won't have these embarrassing moments, or maybe I will. It doesn't matter.
So you're going to create some shorts where I try a fruit every day?
That's putting a stretch. I will try and have more fruit. My favorite fruit is jackfruit. So if there's a wine that tastes like that, let me know. That's what I'm going for.
I don't know. We'll see.
So pretty in depth. Trent, what have you been thinking about?
Wow.
There was a lot.
There's a lot to unpack there. For me, my thought of the week kind of combines both my work and also my passion. So there's tech and then there's also wine. And the thing that's kind of come through is around AI and wine. So the University of Geneva and the Institute of Vine and Wine Science.
Oh, there's
Vine and Wine Science. So they've come and started to do what they call like a gas chromatography, where they start to analyze wines and they look at 30,000 data points and then analyze what it is and when it was made. So think about it. It's a bit like a DNA of wine, so that, they looked across 80 Bordeaux wines. They can say that, that's from Chateau Lafite from 1982. Or that is from Chateau Mouton Rothschild from 1990. Yeah. They're able to pick it to 100% accuracy.
Wow. Okay.
So what that helps is about wine counterfeiting, and there's that popular, that kind of famous counterfeiter before, Rudy Konoan.
So famous, I haven't even heard of him. But
Sour Grapes, where he started to auction a lot of fraudulent wines. So kind of relabel it and mix different wines and then create a certain stuff. He actually had a good palate, but then he brought different wines to create that same type of flavor. So even the experts didn't know. Actually made about, well, he made, but probably lost, but he made about $30 million through auction sales.
When was this? What years was this?
Probably about 10 years ago now. I was in the news.
Okay.
And so probably starts to kind of fight against those type of counterfeiting. And there's still a lot of those wines they say are around today because people don't want to say, I spent $2 million on wine and look like a bit of a fool.
Yes.
So it's probably a good way to start to look at those wines. And then when you think about, how you can take this to another level or kind of extend that kind of use case from AI and wine, you start to look at wine appreciation as well. When you think about it, you can look at a wine, use AI and start to identify this is red cherries, black cherries, this is leather, cooked berries or something like that. Cooked tomatoes. And start to be a bit more scientific and prescriptive about it, about what those flavors are. So even for the novice, it starts to look at what it is, what flavor spectrums are, and start to do that analysis to go, I actually know that with that science behind it rather than someone saying it smells like Lapsang Souchang or Russian caravan tea or something like that.
It does take away a bit of the fun, right? It does take away a bit of the fun. But okay.
And then the other use case around winemaking as well. You think about the winemakers making certain blends. Think about Bordeaux, other areas as well, between different vineyards. So again, you use AI to then create what is the best blend. Imagine that, typing it through and go, create the best blend for me. And then start to take different blends, analyze the different chromatographies of the wine and creates the best blend based on current likes in terms of flavors.
We could set up a winery and put it into ChatGPT and they'd give us all the answers of the blend.
Now, like you see AI now creating their own videos. It looks so realistic, or DALL-E 3 around the photos. Now you can use that to make wines, create wines, and appreciate wines. So I don't know. Yeah, to your point, I thought about, is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? For me, it kind of takes away the kind of mystery and the passion and the heart fun and the fun about wine. But then does add that kind of scientific and empirical kind of slant on analyzing wine, creating wines as well.
Yeah.
I know. Your thoughts?
I kind of relate it to a piece of art and a painting. Yeah. What makes it unique and so special is that it's gone through an individual's mind and brain to create this. And when it's going through AI, it just takes away what that magic is. Anyone with access to that program could then potentially replicate it, which takes away the uniqueness. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, I think the thing that AI or computers can never kind of replaces around that emotive sense, around emotion, like that kind of thing in terms of connection to art or wine. You can talk about it. It's like talking to AI chatbot, but then it's not going to replace actually talking to a person. That connection.
Yes.
So I think that's how I look at it. Like it's good as a tool, but I don't think it's going to completely replace how we think about it.
Yeah. I'm curious if there's any wineries out there that are actually using AI. I wouldn't be surprised if the likes of a Penfolds, who's like loves innovation and so forth, is giving that a crack.
Well, data's everything these days, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah. Okay.
On to today's episode. So today we're going to talk about, is Barbaresco really beautiful?
Yes.
Okay, so firstly, in terms of a bit of background around Barbaresco, the location, the Piedmont area, northwest Italy at the foothill of the Alps, in an area called Langhe. Okay, within Langhe region, there's different communes or councils, as we kind of call it, and one is called Barbaresco, and another is called Barolo. Okay, but today we're going to focus on Barbaresco. Okay, and the other things around that area that you may or may not know is around truffles as well. It's got rolling hills. It's got great food, great wine type of region, and a must visit as well if you ever get the chance to do so.
There's way too many must visits that I'm going to put on the list. But yeah, that's high up there.
Put that on the bucket list. Yes. So absolutely picturesque, and you must go and see it. Okay. Brief history. Initially, Barolo was the wine region. Barbaresco is purely growing grapes for the Barolo region to then create their wine to then on-sell it on. During that time, there was a bit of a lull in terms of the grape production of Barbaresco wines, but only in the 1950s and 60s, there were two young winemakers who started to make, why don't we make our Barbaresco wines? So the two winemakers was Bruno Giacosa and Angelo Gaja. Okay, so very prominent names around Barbaresco they would have heard, and I think the wine's selling it in excess of like $200, $300, $400, $500. Okay, in terms of when it got its DOC status is 1966, and it's fairly small in terms of a DOC as well. 50 members, 100 hectares, which is about 100 football stadiums.
Yeah,
so not very big. Yeah. In terms of the grapes, when we talk about Barbaresco, we're talking about Barolo. What grape are we talking about?
Nebbiolo. This is what I've learned. Yes.
Oh, there we go. The journey is working. Okay. And when we think about Nebbiolo, we should be thinking about Piedmont. And the reason why we're thinking about Piedmont is that there's about 7,000 hectares of Nebbiolo grapes being grown out there, and about 6,000 of that is actually grown in Piedmont. So it should be synonymous with one and the other.
You've cleared something up for me, because I've always thought Barolo and Barbaresco has to be in Piedmont, but it's not the case.
They both are in Piedmont, but they're different communes or councils.
Okay. And so Langhe is just Piedmont, area in which Piedmont is within?
No, Langhe is within Piedmont. And then Langhe, there's Barolo and Barbaresco.
Right. Okay. Got it.
Okay. So before you can start to taste the wines, maybe let's try the Gaja first as I kind of talk through it.
All right, let me hold this up to the screen. So it's a 2009 Gaja Barbaresco. You'll talk through it.
You'll try and let me know what you think. So when we talk about Barbaresco, generally we think of one name, and that is Gaja, or as you would say, Gaja. Okay.
My mate Gaja.
Your mate Gaja. And, Gaja is always termed the king of Barbaresco. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned before, he was one of, the founding fathers of Barbaresco and pushing it as its own DOC. But then also that he's also a risk taker and an innovator as well. He was one of the first people to start bringing international grape varieties. So pulling up Nebbiolo grapes and planting Cabernet Sauvignon and Chardonnay as a way of kind of bringing in that international pool into Barbaresco to try the Barbaresco wines by looking at Chardonnay and Cabernet Sauvignon. He also did single vineyard Barbaresco, which wasn't done before. It's always a blend of different areas, kind of bring it together. So that's one of the things he does. And the other one is also looking at how he can manage the vines as well. So reducing yields, closer vines to each other, and different type of viticulture as well. The other thing he's also starting to look at now, even though he's 80 years old, is also starting to do wines in Etna, which is very popular. We heard Sean kind of talk about Etna as well. So he's starting to experiment with the different soils, different wines in Etna, also different high altitude areas as well. So even at the ripe old age of 80, he's still looking to experiment as well.
Shows you how much he loves it, which is
in terms of Gaja, it's truly a family affair, 5 generations of winemaking. Now it's on to 3 siblings. There is the daughter Gaja, Rosanna Gaja and Giovanni Gaja. So 2 sisters, 1 brother, and they basically run the business today with the father, Angelo, still very much involved on a day-to-day basis. The 2009 Gaja Barbaresco, you tried it as well. What are your initial thoughts, Jace?
Yeah, initial thoughts, and I'm thinking it to past Barolos. The scent of that tar and bitumen is there, but it's softer. The scent of the roses doesn't come through as much. But it's the tannins that kind of have the story in my mind. That grippiness is still there, but it's quite soft, and the acidity. It was actually quite drying on the mouth, but still quite enjoyable. Which I think is the mark of a good Nebbiolo. But
yeah, I'm just thinking like 15 years on, right, from 2009, it's still so powerful with the fruit and the tannins there. It feels like even though for a 15-year-old wine, it's still quite young. Which is the interesting thing.
The acidity is still quite bright.
It's very savory. The fruit's still there. Maybe it's kind of backing off a bit, but it has those kind of like savory elements. I kind of had like soy and dark cherry kind of come through.
Yeah, definitely the element of soy comes through in that flavor.
Yeah.
But but still for me, it's that tannin profile and that grippiness which stands out.
Yeah. So it talks about sweet red fruit, ripe red berries, crushed flowers, spice notes. Get any of that?
I think the spicy notes do come through. It's the fruit that and this is where, I want to develop my palate. It's the fruit that I can't get through. It doesn't stand out as much as the other flavors.
I do agree with you. It's more earthy now.
Yeah. Yes.
Than fruity.
Yes.
Okay. But I thought one thing today that'd be quite fun is that, we did focus this on Barbaresco, but it'll be good to also do a comparison against the other area that you mentioned around Barolo. Okay. And today we're going to try the Giacomo Borgogno no name Nebbiolo. Like I'd say Nebbiolo, not Barolo, and that's for a reason.
Yeah, tell me about that.
So in 2005, Giacomo Borgogno submitted his wine to be certified. This is a Barolo. And then the people that certify it said, no, there wasn't any faults with the wine, but stylistically it didn't adhere towards the Barolo style.
Okay.
And so, he's been around for 250 years in terms of the winery, and he thought that, I'm not having any of this. And in a kind of quiet protest, he basically took some of the Barolo vines and grapes and created this one called a no-name.
Oh, wow. What a great story.
Nebbiolo. So it still uses the Barolo area, Barolo grapes, but it takes off a certain cask of it to create this no-name Nebbiolo. So
I thought it was like a clean skin, like just a cheaper version.
No. So that's his kind of quiet protest. So still uses, the renowned areas around Canubi, Fossato, San Pietro. And this 2020, I think it's still quite young. You've had a little taste already?
Let me taste it again. I did have an initial taste, and I remember the tannins were just slightly, the flavor was slightly bitter, but it still had that soy, that savory flavor there, but it was more of the plum kind of flavors. So that fruitiness was there, which indicates the young side to it.
Yeah, I just had a taste, and it's extremely bright with high acidity to the point you start to squint when I had it.
Yeah.
So, and then the tannins there are so, again, big as well. That just kind of sucks your tongue out. With the Barolo. And so I thought I started to look at the differences between Barolo and Barbaresco. Okay, so the difference is that for Barbaresco, lower altitude, Barolo, higher altitude. So Barolo tends to be a bit more acidic, a bit more lively, whereas for the Barbaresco, a bit more less lively, less acidic, a bit more rounder, plusher. Temperature as well, because it's lower, it's a bit warmer. Likewise for Barolo, higher, cooler, fresher, zingy type of wines with high acidity. Texture, Barbaresco tends to be softer, plusher, more approachable when young, whereas the Barolo has those really big, grippy tannins, denser, richer, because of the soils as well. The Barolo soils tend to be a bit more compact clay.
Right.
That makes it a bit more tighter.
Yep.
Whereas for the Barbaresco ones, sandier soils, a bit looser. Hopefully kind of shows into the wines as well. Because of that, different aging lengths as well. So for Barbaresco, 2 years aging, Barolo 3 years aging. Barolo needs a bit more time of aging to kind of mellow out those big tannins and soften it out. And that's where the differences are. So just to summarize, like when you think about Barbaresco versus Barolo, the Barolo tend to be bigger in everything, bigger tannin, bigger acidity, bigger in terms of flavors as well. But sometimes it can be a bit too, they use the term austere, which has been uncompromising in terms of how it hits you. And so it needs a bit more time for it to kind of relax and kind of mellow out for you to allow.
Uncompromising.
Uncompromising.
That's not a flavor. It's just like it's powerful.
It is that bigness, that powerful, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Some people love the Barolo because it's so big that you can age it for 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
But having said that, the Barbaresco is just a different style. It's not necessarily worse or lesser than the Barolo, but the Barbaresco just tends to be a bit more approachable. And sometimes people say less is more as well.
I think softer is the right word when comparing the two. And I know the years and the age is different.
Yeah.
But for these two bottles, the Barbaresco is softer, more approachable.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier the reason he had to label it as no name was because he didn't adhere to the Barolo style.
Yeah.
What did he do differently? What was it?
I didn't try it back then, but I don't know. It just didn't match up to it. So I said that there wasn't anything actually wrong with it, just that it didn't match up to Barolo style. So I don't know what it was.
They seem so quiet. And, thinking about uncompromising, that's exactly what happened, just purely from a stylistic purpose.
Yeah.
Okay.
Exactly. So we haven't given any Corkscrew ratings. Do you want to give some?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I think the softness of the Gaja and the Barbaresco, it's probably a 9. I mean, I'm still thinking about it. But the softness of those tannins, the tertiary flavors that were coming through was super enjoyable. I'd give the no name, which is the Barolo, I'd give that a 7. There's still a bit of a bitterness, a slight bitterness coming through. Maybe that's from the tannins, but I think maybe over time it'll get better.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, the Gaja Barbaresco, probably 8 out of 7, and then the no-name Barolo is 7 out of 10. The reason why I say that one, I feel like the Gaja is still really good.
Yeah.
The tannins are still so big, but I feel like the fruit's kind of fallen away a bit, but it's maybe needs a bit more time, a bit more air to kind of mellow it out. It's, I don't think anything's kind of wrong with it. Maybe just it needs a bit more time.
Yeah.
With this one, again, I think time's the issue at the moment. 2020 for such a big type of wine still needs, another 10 years at least to kind of come together.
How much is the no name? What's it?
60, 70, I think, off the top of my head.
Wow. Okay. Which is pretty good for effectively a Barolo. So that's great. So do you think we've answered the question, Barbaresco, is it a beautiful wine?
I think it is a beautiful wine.
I think it is.
You know what I feel though? I feel like it's a fantastic food wine. Has such those big tannins and needs something kind of meaty to kind of go with it.
Yeah.
Like something like a 12-hour slow cooked lamb shoulder, or like some soy and red wine braised beef cheeks or something like that.
For some reason, I feel like you've already got that right here. Looking forward to pair it with that. But I agree. I think beauty is the right term. It's comparing that with the Barolo. It's softer and the beauty, and it stands out to me. So great experience to understand the history of Gaja and Barbaresco.
Yeah. So just to kind of wrap things up and wind it up, I say that, Piedmont has beautiful wines, beautiful food, beautiful landscape and scenery. It's definitely a must visit and add it onto your bucket list as well. So, the wines are great, the food's great, and you just have to visit. You have to visit.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel like you're telling me to go. I need to book my tickets. That's great. Look, Trent, I really appreciate the introduction and information on that. We'll have it on the list somehow to get there. One day we'll do a live podcast from there. One day. But it's been a great, amazing journey. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As we like to say here, drink more, try more, learn more. Thanks all.
Bye.